EFF has threatened legal action over the process followed in Tuesday's Finance Committee meetings. Ahead of the fiscal framework vote, the party voted against the adoption of the report in the National Assembly yesterday. For more on this, we are now joined by EFF Member of Parliament, Sinawo Thambo. Sinawo, a very good morning to you. Thank you so much for making time for us this morning. You had written that letter to the Speaker, which was written day before yesterday. Of course, the Speaker then said that they only received it at 5 a.m. Yesterday. But speak to us about what the next step is for the EFF with regards to the process that was followed by the subcommittee, considering that in that letter as well, you had given them until 8 a.m. to withdraw the report. It wasn't withdrawn. It has now actually been adopted.
No, thank you, Aldrin. Greetings to the viewers. So it is correct that we wrote to the Speaker of the National Assembly 2 days ago, requesting that the Fiscal Framework and Revenue Proposal report from the Standing Committee on Finance be withdrawn from the order paper that was the National Assembly yesterday. So there was an important legal clarity that we had to make, even in the Assembly yesterday, that we did not send it at 5 a.m. because that becomes the basis to establish a legal argument as to when we made necessary communications in time as well. So the vote proceeded yesterday despite our objections from the floor and objections from other political parties, which stated that there was a procedural flaw in how the report was adopted in the Standing Committee on Finance because the Money Bills Amendment Procedure and Other Related Matters Act was not followed to the letter. There wasn't a clear statement that states whether we accept or want to amend the fiscal framework and revenue proposals. It was inserted afterwards. And then that said report was circulated to us as members of the committee at a much later stage in the evening after the committee had stood down, and we had not voted as to whether that position is one that is of common consensus. So after yesterday, we have been consulting with our legal team to establish a basis as to whether there is a feasible chance as to whether we're going to be able to reverse these processes, and that is ongoing. And of course, we have to consider that there's the Democratic Alliance that is also going to court supposedly today, and that will also inform the manner in which we approach the courts as to whether we proceed with our own independent legal process or we would be more realistic to join the legal process that will already be underway if the DA files its papers ahead of us. So that is the process that is currently ongoing. Since yesterday, we've been in consultation with our legal teams, but we do remain firm that we reject the fiscal framework and revenue proposals because they contain VAT hikes. And of course, the purported rumors that there can be an altering of this within 30 days is something that is not legally permissible. And if you look at all government communication, it states that there will be VAT increases of 0.5% from the 1st of May this year and the next year in 2026. So that will be the basis of, there's a lot of misleading that has gone on and presumptions that have gone on as well. So the basis of our legal argument will work around that.
All right. But yesterday as well, you also said that you would seek to interdict the sitting from going ahead yesterday. Why did you decide against that?
Look, I think we gave the Speaker due time to respond to us because we realized that we sent our letter at around 10 to 11 p.m. yesterday, and our deadline might not have been the best. And she explained that she also needed to consult in the morning, so she couldn't respond to us in the set time frame that was necessary, which was 8 a.m. We received the response at around 12 to 1 p.m. So the time frames did not allow for such legal processes to be undertaken to be able to interdict the sitting in itself. So we accepted that as something that we were unable to do at that point in time. But I think what occurred in the National Assembly yesterday was grounds for us to pursue a proper and solid legal avenue should we seek to do so. Because even in the sitting, the Speaker's phrasing of her response is that she has been advised that things occurred in a meeting as a result of a report that we are disputing that is procedurally flawed and has distortions in it. And that is what we try to illustrate to the Speaker as well, that she's basing her decision on advisement from the very people who have manipulated the report and distorted the process in the Standing Committee of Finance. So all of those occurrences in the National Assembly yesterday are going to be critical and important when compared with the record of the Standing Committee itself and people who were in the Standing Committee itself, because much of the arguments that were being made in the National Assembly yesterday were based on a procedurally flawed report and a report that wasn't adopted by everyone. So it's going to be important. And I think we've gotten more by allowing the sitting to proceed than we would have gotten if we did not.
Yeah, if you were to go to court and you're successful in your arguments and your prayers before court, won't it be a futile exercise that the committee meets again? But what the outcome of that committee meeting is going to be is again going to be that the report is adopted.
Look, I think if we correct the procedural error first, it gives us a lot of time to prevail on political parties that were either misled or had a misinterpretation of legislation. And this includes the Action SA, which has been misleading South Africans either deliberately or because of ignorance, that there's a possibility of amending the fiscal framework and revenue proposals 30 days after it has been adopted by the National Assembly. So that legal process, if it is successful in our favor, which will ensure that VAT hikes are put on hold for a period of time, will give us time to prevail on those political parties that have made a brazen mistake and misinterpretation of the law as it pertains to whether VAT hikes are permissible or not. They must all look, and I think all South Africans must look at the African National Congress statement following the National Assembly sitting yesterday and the vote. Look at government communication. It has no utterance about 30 days to seek alternatives to the VAT hikes. The minister's response in Parliament yesterday doesn't speak about seeking alternatives to the VAT hikes within 30 days. It actually speaks about the mechanisms that they use to sort of cushion the impact of the VAT hike, showing you that it is an inevitable thing that is going to be implemented. They speak about zero rating of certain goods further. So there's no state institution or state representative, even the majority party, doesn't speak about these 30-day alternatives. So this conditional support by Action SA of the fiscal framework and revenue proposal is not legally permissible, is not legally feasible, and is unrealistic, and is not going to come to fruition. So the legal process gives us an opportunity to prevail on them and show them how they've been misled, because the political party that misled them is already celebrating the fact that they're going to implement VAT hikes, and there's no permissibility of 30 days to seek any other effort.
All right. We just had a chat with the federal chairperson of the Democratic Alliance earlier this morning on what happens next for the Democratic Alliance. The FedEx is meeting. So it seems that if there is the possibility of the Democratic Alliance leaving the government of national unity, the EFF had been quite vocal last year that you wouldn't be part of a coalition that includes the Democratic Alliance. If the Democratic Alliance decides to leave the GNU, would the EFF be willing and open to have negotiations with the ANC and see whether you want to join the government of national unity? And I'm also asking this on the basis of, here you have a budget, and this budget is being presented, but the EFF is also against that budget.
Look, that conversation has not occurred as to whether we are going to join the government of national unity should the DA leave or not. We haven't been approached by anyone on that basis, and we've always, now engagements with the African National Congress, insisted that we center the budget in our conversation without any incentives or trade-offs as to why that must be passed, because that is a manipulative interaction that is at the expense of the people of South Africa. So we haven't had that conversation, and if the Democratic Alliance were to leave the government of national unity, it is Cyril Ramaphosa's prerogative as to how he wants to reconfigure and reconstitute it. The EFF isn't in existence to seek that. We're not on a bench waiting permanently to be included in the government of national unity. We're fighting a matter of principle. And if it means that the matter of principle that we are fighting but will result in us not being allowed to join the government of national unity, then so be it. We're not in a quest to achieve that. Our quest is to achieve the fact that the people of South Africa must not receive a VAT hike. So the argument that might be proposed is that, or purported, is that we didn't support the budget and therefore we can't be included in the GNU. It was not our budget to support. The economic freedom fighters are not obligated to support a budget that was crafted outside of consultation with us, and that doesn't include our own policy perspectives. So we don't have an obligation to have supported this budget. And if this was a condition in the minds of any ANC people for us to be invited to the GNU, that we must support a budget that we are fundamentally opposed to, then they were very misplaced, because that's not the obligation of the EFF. We're not part of the government, and we hope that that was not an expectation from anyone.
All right. Thank you so much for your time. Sinawo Thambo is the spokesperson for the EFF.